In your own words, who is Christian Young?
Well, first and foremost, a faithful man, a good man, and a professional mixed martial artist. That's what I'd say.
So, as you say there, professional mixed martial artist now. 2
Yes,
and
sir.
0,
Yes, sir.
two submissions, both in the first round.
Mhm.
One on Cage Warriors Academy, one on FCC.
Mhm.
But we're going to work a little bit in chronological order today. So, I want to go back. You had your first MMA fight, then you had a period of time off, gained a little bit of weight, chubby Oz, and then at some point you made the decision to get back in the game. Then I met you not long after that. I never met Chubby Oz, but tell me about that period and what led to that decision to get back in the game.
Oh, I was just, to be honest, it was a bit of self hatred. Just remember looking myself in the mirror and thinking, "Far, like you're just a pig." Honestly, just looked at myself and thought, "You're just a fat mess," you know. Just a little bit of self hatred. Went on a couple runs. Thought I hate running. Just still hate running. And then thought, well, I'll just pick up jiu-jitsu again. Started training a little bit, and then Webby was like, "Oh, why don't you fight?" And I was like, "Nah, don't really fancy it, mate. I'm not a fan of fighting." And he was like, "Oh, well, just give me like 3 weeks." He was like, "Turn up to a kickboxing class, do a couple MMA classes, stick to your jiu-jitsu, and let's see where it goes." And I remember the first sparring session, and I was sparring with someone, and it's just like just tapping, playing around, sort of thing, nothing crazy. And I just thought, oh fucking like fuck this, I'm not getting beat up in class. So I had a little bit of a war for the rest of the round, just about probably like a minute left. Just stood there and swung from the hip, which is stupid. But swung from the hip, then I thought, oh, this ain't too bad. Started training again, and then yeah, that led us to that first fight. To be fair, it was so I reckon, well, I believe it was just obviously a little bit of self hatred. Just didn't want to be fat anymore. Like one of the best shapes of your life. Well, not back then. I didn't really have. I was all skin and bone anyway, but walking around at like 61 kilos most of my life. Pretty skinny dude, like nothing like washboard abs on the beach or anything like that, but like not a big percent of body fat. To then looking in the mirror one day and figuring out you're 84 kilos. That is 20 20 plus kilos. That's a fucking lot of weight to carry. So yeah.
Which is crazy because, I mean, what do you walk around at now in between fight camps?
Walk around the last fight camp. I was walking around just before this fight camp. Like I think I was like 66, 67 kilos. But if I indulge too much, I'm like 70. So yeah, another 14 kilos.
Yeah, see, that is insane, isn't it? And it's crazy to think about for me because obviously, like, what I've known you probably 5 years now, and you know, you're disciplined, you're a professional athlete now. You work with your nutritionist Bembo. So yeah, it is crazy looking back at like the photos of you when you got yourself out of shape. But you got yourself back in the cage, which we discussed that first fight. And then you put together a good string of performances. And then freak accident in the gym one day. I remember like it was yesterday. I was on holiday and you broke your leg, I believe, snapped your tib and fib in one fell swoop. And then it was road to recovery after that. So just talk me through what you're thinking. Obviously, you'd be in shock, but what you're thinking on your way to the hospital as someone who's aspiring to be a professional athlete and suffering that type of
My
serious
first
injury.
thoughts were just I thought honestly, my first thought when it happened, I remember obviously being in loads of shock, a lot of pain, but then when it started to come around, I just a feeling of honestly, this is over. Like that's it. That was the scariest thing for me, and I remember the I just kept saying this to everyone, like I can't go back to sight. I won't go back to sight. I can't do it. I don't want to do that. And I remember everyone like banding around me, sort of. Obviously, you're not gonna just tell someone who just broke their leg, oh well, mate, you haven't got a choice. You're gonna have to pick up some fucking tools again. They were all like, oh no, it's okay. You're not gonna go back. I guess obviously trying to make me feel better. But yeah, that was the first thing, and then I just thought, oh fuck. I had a couple I had a couple key conversations. Say I remember after So did on the Sunday, surgery on the Monday. Woke up from surgery mid-afternoon, I believe, from the anesthesia. And I remember the doctor coming in going, "Oh, it's a success, mate. Like, this is what, like, blah, 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 blah. This is what we've done." And I was like, "Oh, cool, man." And he was like, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I said, "When can I fight again?" And he was like, "Oh, well, like, just take it easy for a while." And I was like, "No, doc, like, give me a realistic timeline. Like, when am I going to fight?" And I remember he looked at me and he just goes, "Mate, you'll be lucky to walk about a limp again, let alone fight. Like, you need to relax. It's maybe time you take a step back and you think about what you're doing." And I was like, "All right, fucking hell." I was like, "Maybe next year?" And he was like, "Mate, just let's get through your rehab first, and then obviously when the surgeon when he gives you the all clear to like start slowly returning to training, then you'll see how you go." And I remember after that conversation, I just thought, what the fuck does he know? Which is kind of crazy because he's a fucking surgeon. So I just thought, fuck that guy. What does he know? And then I had a conversation with an MMA coach that I saw at an MMA event, and he was like, "Oh mate, that's pretty crazy. What happened?" And I was like, "Yeah, mate." I was like,
Yeah.
"I'll be back soon though." And he was like, "Kid," he said pretty much the same thing. He was like, "Kid, like it's probably gonna be a little while before you think that. Like it's probably gonna be a couple of years." So I just thought like, not fuck them, but like I thought, fuck it. If that's what people think, like let's give him something to talk about then. If people think it's going to take me at least 2 years to get back, like year and a half to get back to training, or 2.5 years, let's see how quick we can run it. And that's pretty much what happened.
Yeah, so it's unreal. Looking back now, like what we're talking 3 years ago, and you can correct me on the timeline, but I always tell people about this. I think it was less than 3 weeks later, I nearly run you over because you appeared outside the gym and you walked straight in front of my car. And I looked up, and the last person I expected to see walking around outside the gym, completely fine, no crutches, just walking around, was you.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I shit myself because I was like, I've nearly just run him over. And that's crazy. We're talking, I'm pretty sure it was less than 3 weeks later. And then,
Yeah, it's pretty much 3 weeks on the dot.
yeah, I remember coming around to see you as soon as it happened, and you were getting up, I think it was every hour on the hour for a set of pull ups.
Mhm.
And the hardest thing wasn't the pull ups, it was getting to the bar.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
sitting there watching compilations of the worst leg breaks in the UFC,
Yeah.
and then getting up and doing pull ups and suffering your way to the bar. But not many people would have been able to have as quick a turnaround as you had there. You were back in at the start of October. So I believe the injury was March 2023, and you were fighting
Yeah.
again in October 2023. And I remember, so I was in camp with you for this one in October, and you were training hard, and it was almost
Mm.
like this sort of fairy tale
Yeah.
that everyone was like, Oz is going to be back and he's coming in and he's going to be good. And then we had that fight, and I think you'd probably agree
Mm.
it was your worst performance to date. I actually watched this fight back yesterday, getting ready for this. And although you fought Delphi Humor, Delphi's a very good fighter, but also I think it was a bit of a reality shock that maybe 6 months was a bit too quick of a turnaround to come back from that type of leg break.
Yeah, that's for sure. It was from what I can remember from that fight, it was obviously came out, jab, inside leg, switch to southpaw because I was like, that'll throw him off. And then I just come to realize, obviously, Delphi being a main training partner of myself when I go to spar down at the gym there, he just walks. He'll just walk forward and be explosive as he does. So I was like, oh yeah, that'll throw him off. And then and then got finished within the round. So that was definitely a. I think the problem with that was, and I've dissected that a lot of times in my head because that's what I do. I'm very critical of myself. Um, that was not disrespect or not taking him seriously. I just believe that was a thing of I'd already won the battle in my head. I've already done what people said I couldn't do, so I've sort of ticked that box where it should have been, yeah, you've done this, and it's not that I didn't give him respect. It's the thing of just like it was already won in my head. Like if I can come back 6 months later after a leg break, which I honestly believe that's I say it to everyone. I believe it's the quickest turnaround in MMA I've seen. Well, I've done my research myself, and I believe it's the quickest turnaround in MMA, 6 months. But it was already one in my head. I was like, if I can come back from a leg break and I can just survive it, that's one. And that was just exactly like you said, a reality check. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should probably, 10 minutes in, we should probably mention I'm your striking coach.
Yes, correct.
So I was with you cage side, and it got finished at 2:59 of round one. And I remember I've been with you for the 3 fights that you lost in the amateurs, and I've been with you afterwards in the back for those 3 fights. 2 of them very close decision losses, and then the finish loss. I remember the feeling afterwards being completely different. That was a real, I think, because it was such a high build up in that fight, to then almost go off a bit of a cliff with the result, it was a much lower low than any other loss you've had before.
100%. It was like I said. I guess I was just so emotionally high strung, and that time of year, it gets tough for me. So like I hold a little bit of that emotional and mental weight too, and that was definitely one of the lowest points of my career. Obviously, besides the leg break itself, that was definitely a big defining moment. That loss.
And off the back of that, and again, you can correct me on the timeline here, I believe it was around then that you started working with a mutual friend of ours, which is James Elliott, who is a fantastic therapist, is probably the right words, but he's a great sports psychiatrist, works with very high level athletes, Paralympic gold medalists. And as someone who is close around you in training camp, cage side, backstage with you before a fight, the difference from working with a sports psychiatrist has been very, very palpable. You can feel it in the back before a fight. There's a clip before the Dacre fight, and we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but we will come back, where we're walking out and you can see myself, Kev, your wrestling coach, and Webby, and all of us are like game face, serious, like we're about to go to war, and you're dancing to James
Brown was
Brown.
on.
So that's a very different feeling to pre-Delphi fight, pre-working with James Elliott.
Oh, most definitely. He's like we said, he's a ridiculous mind. Like he's one of the kindest men in the world, but he's a ridiculous mind when it comes to sports psychology, sports mindset most definitely, and all those things included. He's definitely unlocked that extra 15% up here, because at the end of the day, you go out there and fight, but if you're not mentally strong, you're not getting anywhere. So that's definitely a big thing that I've found.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then, we jump forward to your next fight, which I think was the following April. So we're looking at April 2024, and it's a different fighter. I watched it again yesterday after watching the Delphi fight. I watched them in order, and the difference, you steamed through your opponent, Delavar Nazir, in 1 minute and 57 seconds. And I don't think he landed a shot. He had no offense on the ground. It was simply, you mauled him. What happened between those 2 fights?
Obviously, it was the reality check of being finished, having the TKO finish, not being able to train, or not train, but not being able to take headshots for a while, doing the right thing. Didn't spar for the rest of the year, so had a couple months off sparring, just hitting pads, doing some jiu-jitsu, obviously doing the grappling. And just really wanted to get that win back. Like I had lost before. Obviously, I lost that decision, like you said, to Nico Bellardo. Lost that. That was sort of a thing. Like you can almost tell people, like, oh, if you watch that fight again, like you see this, this, and this. And I get it's recency bias, obviously, to yourself. When you lose a close decision, you do look back, and sometimes you go, it's hard to say. Like he was the better man of the night, and I believe I did this to win. But the Delphi finish definitely. I didn't want to feel like that again. I never wanted to feel like that again. So just not giving him any respect. I did tend to give people too much respect. So just coming in with that mindset, working with James Elliott, doing all the right little things, and being in the right headspace. And that was also the first. That was the first fight I had Kev there too, and that he's a very he was a I remember that calming presence also. So I just felt like we always talk about that frequency. I was right on that frequency, so I felt great.
Yeah, and I mean that's probably a good time to discuss. I mean, for as long as I've known you, you've always been
Hmm.
a man of faith. You've always been somebody who prays, not just before fights. Obviously, that's when I'm privy to it, but just in your day to day.
Hmm.
But Kev is a very, very religious man, and I think having that influence backstage has made a big difference for you before fights, but also could be coincidental, but I think since having that influence, you've taken it
Oh, I believe
much
so.
further
I
in your day
honestly,
to day
the
life.
last, I would say actually that might be that would be a probably a good landmark for me for my faith. To be honest, I was always a man of faith. I've had not like it means anything crazy, but I've always had religious tattoos. Um, Always been quite into my faith and quite around it. But I believe that landmark. Since then, I've been more of a practicing man of faith and making sure I'm doing all the extra 10% with my faith, like you would do in training. Like you stay back, you do an extra 30 minutes, or you're going out for a run. You're doing all the small little bits, leaving no stone unturned. I believe that was a landmark to bring me close to my faith. And within the last 2 years, maybe 18 months, I've really not honed it in because faith is everlasting and undulating. It's very mercurial from day to day, but it's definitely strengthened those core values for me, most definitely, and brought me closer to reframe my mind that this is what I do. Like no one can take it away from me. And one of my favorite proverbs is, um, if we live for the Lord and if we die for the Lord, it doesn't matter then if we die in battle. Do you know what I mean? Like if you go every day and you live for the Lord, and if you die, you're still for the Lord. It doesn't matter. And that's honestly what I believe now. Whenever I go into a fight, I say to the missus the night before, and she hates it. But I say like I'm ready to. If I go out there and I die tomorrow, like that's it. Obviously that's it. But like it's not. It's what I would have wanted. Do you know what I mean? If I have to and I have to go that extra 10% and it does kill me, I'm going out. It is what it is. You have to be in that. I believe you have to be in that mindset. I know it helps me a lot. So I believe that's really helped me sharpen that and hone that in.
Yeah, and I think we see that with a lot of the highest level fighters. I think even me and you have said this before, like a long time ago, of like you get in a cage with someone who's really religious, get back out
Yeah,
because they've just got that extra
100%.
10%. Like whether it's like the Dagestanis and they're like Muslim faith or a super Christian dude, like that they've got God in their side.
Yeah, you'll
Get
remember
out of the
shit.
way because
You know.
they're just willing to go further.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're willing to go further than you are. Yeah, fair enough, man. But that's great. And like I say, I've witnessed that progression, being like a close friend. And yeah, and I think it's obvious. And you then took that mentality into
Hmm.
finally getting your Cage Warriors title opportunity against, bear with me on this fella's name, Ala Chiabi, I
Yeah, I think
think.
that's how you say it.
And I remember this one so clearly because I don't know if I've ever been more confident going into a fight alongside one of my
Oh, definitely.
fighters. I think we just all knew it with the progression you'd
Mm.
made mentally that there's no one was stopping you from
Oh,
getting your hands on that belt. So from from being on your ass after the Delphi fight to sitting on top of the cage with the strap, tell me about how that feeling was.
that was yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It wasn't a done deal, but we all sort of had that feeling that like, no, we're gonna steamroll him. Like that's it. He might have a couple tricks up his on his back, and everyone's a really good striker when they fight me, which is great. That's unreal. You can be a great striker, but it's gonna be hard to strike off your back. unless you're Steve McMorris. It's hard to land a good shot off your back. So that's true. Yeah, Steve is an absolute madman with that.
Yeah, great point.
But yeah, we did
Is
going back to that and trying to put myself back in that situation. There was a weird feeling in the air. There was we just thought we were going to steamroll him, and that was a big rewarding thing for me because again, that's away from the leg break. That was just over 12 months because that was the June. I think that was June, I believe. Maybe it was July. So it was like 14 months after. Yeah, that was 14 months
July.
after the leg break.
July
So
2024.
that was a well, they're all big fights, and it's life or death when you're in it, but feels like life or death. But yeah, that was crazy to think. Like people said, I was going to be lucky to walk without a limp, and then you break the leg, and then 14 months after the leg break, you've had 3 fights. You're 2-1. Obviously, one title, the first title shot lost, but the second time around, taking what's mine and just not giving him respect. Going out there and getting the job done.
And then following on from that, we went into a fight shooting up a weight class up to bantamweight and going in against Dacre Bradley, who is a very good fighter, champion at the weight class above. But going into this fight, it was slightly different as you had Samuel Ray Barros following you around with a camera, documenting your entire fight week. Lovely lad. And a very, very good documentary on Netflix. Oh, Netflix, fucking hell. YouTube.
Fucking wish.
Yeah, I rewatched that yesterday, and it is class. It's so good. I believe it's Christian Young, the fighter, on YouTube. But it's almost like a little glimpse into the future, like having the camera crew following you around on fight week is something that not a lot of amateur MMA athletes get to experience, but it's a great peek behind the curtain of what MMA is like away from the bright lights and the big stages.
It's just a lot of walking the dogs, talking shit, really. Especially fight week. There's obviously not much to do. You're keeping your head busy. But yeah, that fight week was definitely different. I didn't feel like he was really there. Obviously asking me questions, and I'm more than happy to give my time to journalists or just anyone. To be honest, I would sit there. I'd be able to sit there on fight week in a cafe, and if someone started up a conversation with me, I'd happily carry it. I love speaking to people. That's how you. I believe that's what life's about. Life's about little interactions you have, and that was a great fight week. Obviously, him following me around, not the result we wanted. But yeah, that was definitely a good little glimpse into like how the future is going to be, and obviously, well, we're not quite there yet with other things like that on the professional scene, but we will be soon. That was a good week, man. Obviously, like I said, we unfortunately again, I believe I got caught up in the thing of having the battle already won in my head, being a little bit too latent, and I think the weight got to me there. I during the camp being like trying to get big the wrong way. Didn't have much time. No, and it's not even the time. That was October, I believe, July to October. Just eating pretty much like trying to really lift heavy, and just eating a couple more takeaways a week, just keeping the weight up. You know what I mean? It was very sick weight on the night. Felt really sluggish, and that's not really how I want to feel.
No, that's it. But I think one thing that you've always been good at is you've accumulated a lot of lessons in the amateur game, and you've taken them forward with you into the pro game. For example, you now once a week go up to Dacre and Delphi's gym, GB Top Team in London, and you go and spar with the 2 lads who beat you in the amateurs, and as well as many other fighters and UFC fighters. But going up, having the humility to go up to the gym of 2 people who have beaten you before, and you've beaten some of their lads as well, it takes a lot of personality, but it also shows that you know where you want to get to, and you know
100%.
how you have to get there. So after the Dacre loss, we then look at moving on to the pros, and your pro career started very eventfully with
Yep.
being knocked down with the first shot,
And then kneed.
being elbowed with the second shot, and being kneed in the face with the third shot,
Yep.
all in the
Yeah.
space of
And then
3 seconds. I mean, I know what your answer is here, but tell me what you're thinking in that moment.
I don't even remember. That's the worst thing. I remember that. That's the like when I was like, yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna feint the jab for the calf kick, and obviously I've fucked up the distance as I do sometimes, and I've landed just above the knee. Obviously, you've got too close. Relaxed on the way back. He's loaded up on the left hook, which we knew he was gonna do all camp. Which we were drilling shit all camp because we knew he was gonna do that. Didn't even remember. All I remember is waking up in a double leg on the other side of the cage, thinking, "Fucking hell, I've done alright to get this." Ended up manhandling, ragdolling him a bit, getting a finish, and I just remember afterwards, like I didn't remember that at all, but I remember looking at, I think it was Dan Moverheady. Yeah, I think it was Dan. I remember looking at Dan. He was like, "That was a great fight, mate. You really faced some adversity." And I just the first thing I remember in my head, I was like, "Adversity." I was like, "What fucking adversity? I fucked him up." And then yeah, and then obviously talking to you and Webby, they were like, "Oh," and I was like, "Oh shit, that's what happened. That's mad." So yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, no, I remember coming into the cage on that one and grabbing you and being like, Jesus Christ, man, like, why did you do that? And looking out of the
Yeah.
cage to like all of our friends and your supporters who were
Yeah,
cage
yeah,
side,
you
and
know.
just like everyone
Uh
just
huh.
looked exhausted from what was three and a
Oh
half
mate, it was mental.
minutes of MMA as spectators. Yeah, that was something else. It was, but again, it just shows your ability to just go. You know where you're going, and a 4 ounce glove for the first time getting wrapped around your head, an elbow for the first time getting wrapped around your head, and a knee to the face. And it's just, I'm getting hold of your waist and you're going on your head, son.
100%. And I believe that's one thing that I again another lesson. Even obviously, there's always lessons in every fight, but I believe that was a good lesson to take away that too, and a big thing for my head mentally because at the end of the day, when you're knocked out, obviously, like whether it's a flash knockout or a complete knockout, when you wake up, there's fight or flight. It takes you back to that caveman shit. Your body, your mind's either gonna go get the fuck out of here. What are you doing? Curl up in a ball, which you see a lot, or it's get back up. What are you doing? Let's go. Figure it out, mate. So I'm really happy that it was the latter of the two, and I didn't just crawl up into a ball like a little puss. So it's good. All good.
That's it. I mean, that's a good trait to have as a professional fighter.
Oh, most definitely, mate.
Um,
If it went the other way, I'd be having a long, hard look at myself.
and one thing you definitely didn't have in your next fight was adversity. Your following fight against a very good
Mm.
prospect as well. I actually can't remember his
Dane
name off the
Bolton,
top of my head, but Dane Bolton,
super good.
a really good fighter. I remember we had a fight scheduled, which we'll move on to, and the lad pulled, and we got rematched against Dane, and we
Mm.
both said this is a much harder fight. And what do? You fucking rip his leg off and heel hook him in the first round.
Yeah, yeah. Heel hooks don't work in MMA. That's what I always. That's the craziest thing because I say it to all the lads at the gym whenever I take a fight. They'll like drop in for a heel hook. I'm like, no, what are you doing? But I guess they do work when the level's a little bit different in the grappling, most definitely. And I believe I bring a strong level of MMA grappling. I believe I MMA grappling. It's not just jiu-jitsu sitting on my back waiting for things to happen. Um, so yeah, that was I'm like I said. I remember getting that name and figuring the guy out, and he was a sharpshooter, very much a technician. Very footwork was footwork was amazing. Didn't throw it. He threw some like special stuff, some crazy things, but his foundations were bulletproof. Really long. Loved things up the middle, which was obviously going to be tough for me to enter in. But yeah, that was again that luckily enough that was me messing up what what I wanted to do. Laying on my back, looking up at him, threw a right hand that missed my head, and I was just thinking, shit, I need to suss something out here. I need to try to pull something out my ass. So I managed to do that, luckily. So that's all good.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely managed to do that. A first round heel hook doesn't happen a lot in
No,
MMA,
most
and
definitely done.
you actually got submission of the year on FCC for that
Yeah, I
sub,
got the fan vote.
and you're back on FCC, not this Saturday, next Saturday, March the 7th, up in Liverpool, and you are taking on Alex Holm, who pulled out the first time round, and why we ended up fighting Dane Bolton. So tell me about the upcoming fight with Alex Holm.
Yeah, Alex is he's a pretty good striker. You know, he's got good footwork. His grappling's okay. And yeah, I just can't wait to get my hands on him. It's pretty much like we said, he pulled out the last time 2 weeks before a fight, so pretty much done two full camps. Get ready for one fella, so I feel pretty confident that I'll be able to take what he can give me and be able to return and make it work in my favour.
I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing that one. And we're rounding third here. I'm getting towards the end of my questions, but one that I wanted to put to you, because I really enjoy listening to you speak about where you've come from, is a quote that you said just before your fight with Dacre on the film. And it's always interesting being in the back with the fighters, and you corner lads all the time, same as me, how people are acting before a fight and the things that they're saying to themselves. And you get the generic ones, and then you have people's more individual ones. And a lot of the time they say them to themselves, and you don't actually hear what they're saying. So this is one that I haven't heard you say, but I loved it when I saw it. And the thing is, you said, I've got all of Merrickville on my back. I'm the best. I'm the fucking best.
That's it.
Talk to me about that.
That's it. You know, if like you know how it is, brother. When people know me, I'm proud of where I come from. That being a little place in Sydney called Marrickville, pretty gentrified now. It's full of hipsters and matcha. But when I was younger, it was a tough place to grow up, man. Tough place to grow up. When I was there for the formative years of my life, and my family had been, obviously, before we moved away because we couldn't afford it. But my family had been there since they came from the country. Like my great grandfather Tommy Mack, Thomas Edward Martin MacDonald, he came there from Cessnock, which was a buttfuck town in the middle of New South Wales. Came out to the city to earn a better living for his family. My grandma grew up there, my mum grew up there, I grew up there, my brother, my sister grew up there. So yeah, I'll always be 2204 through and through. You know, that was the home. They used, like I said, it was just blue collar, working class, grit. I believe I carry that. I carry that every day, and my grandma always said, if there's anything you can be proud of, you can always be proud of where you come from, and I definitely hold that close to my heart, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. And it's great to see as well, as someone who knows you and you're on the other side of the world from like where you grew up and your family and whatnot. It's always good to see that like you're so proud of where you came from, you know. That documentary was absolutely quality.
Mate,
I know I said
he
it
did a
already.
great job.
I loved it, and when I was rewatching it yesterday, I was locked in. I was locked into that. But I briefly said this earlier, and I want to speak more about it now. Not just for you, but for we're surrounded by amateur athletes and higher level athletes. Talk to me about what it's like being an aspiring professional mixed martial artist when you're not on the big shows yet, when you're not making the big money yet, because it's a hard life when you are making the money. Tell me about what it's like when you're not entering that stratosphere yet.
Oh, it's tough. It's every job, and it isn't a real job. I love my job, and they say if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life. And I definitely don't work normally, but there's a reason why 99% of men won't do what I do, because even if they had the opportunity, they wouldn't. A lot of men dip their toes into the amateur and never really end up making it pro, because it's fucking hard graft.
Yeah, that's me.
It's hard graft. It's yeah, but brother, it's you know how you conduct yourself as a professional when you're an amateur. Not a lot of people do that. It's happening more now, obviously, especially like the top team and that there's a amateurs, loads of pros, loads of amateurs flood the mat, and they're training at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, so they're treating their career as a professional, and I believe that's just something that I've done for a long time. Obviously, sack and work off, and pretty much just before I think it was the December before I broke my leg. Obviously, sack and work off, and being an amateur but conducting yourself as a professional, it's tough, man. It's nothing's free. Do you know what I mean? Nothing's free. You got to put the time in. Obviously, I'm able to get by with the help of my sponsors. I'm very lucky that I have a select amount of people that believe in me, want to invest in me, and obviously I've got my family, and and obviously the gym being a close knit community. It's rough though, man. Like training 2-3 times a day when you don't want to train, and then doing all that for 8 weeks just to get locked into a cage with some other idiot. You know what I mean? And doing it
Yeah,
for
it's definitely an
15
interesting
minutes.
way to live.
Yeah, doing it for 15 minutes for blokes to drink a beer and say, "Oh, I would have done this." You go, "All right, mate. No worries. You give it a go. Have a go." But it's tough, but I love it. I love it. This is definitely what I'm built for. I say I say to a lot of people, like, I believe when I was younger, and I honestly, God's honest truth, when I was younger, it wasn't a thing of like young lads who used to be like, "Oh, I'm gonna be this. I'm gonna be a mechanic. I wanna be a policeman. I wanna do this." I never really knew. I didn't even want to be a carpenter, mate. My mum made me be a carpenter. I wanted to be a sparky, and then she said Jesus was a carpenter. So I said, "All right, well, I guess I'll just do carpentry then." Like, I didn't even want to be a chippy, brother. So like, I never had the affinity of like,
Yeah,
this is what I want to do. I always had a feeling of like I was built, and not in a scumbag way or like a turn your nose up way. I always believed that I was built for something different. I was built for something better, and it took me coming halfway across the world to realize it. But this is what I'm meant to do. I'm a fighter, and I've always been a fighter. Like, through my life, I've had some tough challenges through life, but that's what makes you. That's what's given me the strength I have today. And my grandma always told me, I don't think it's a real proverb. It's probably just a little bit of grandma's wisdom. But she always said, there was a man with the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he cried out to the Lord, and he said, "Please, Lord, light my load." And the Lord broadened his shoulders, and that's true. If you, like I talk about it all the time. You pray for strength. God isn't going to give you the strength. He's going to give you the tough battles to form you. And I believe those moments in time through my life that I can think about, they're little landmarks to broaden the shoulders and build me up to just punch people in the face, I guess. So it's all good.
yeah, 100%, man. And like, it's so good. Obviously, you are like one of my best friends, one of the closest people
Yes,
to
sir.
me that I have. It's so nice having these conversations, because these aren't conversations we would normally have. We normally would just talk about nothing for an hour and talk about
I'll
the
just shoot the shit.
exactly. And I am excited to have you on again in the future and do that. But it's been great to actually listen to some long form answers of your thoughts and feelings on different things that I've lived alongside you,
Mhm.
and been able to peer in on the outside. But right, to finish off, I've got some quick fire questions for you.
We've got like a
All right,
countdown.
and that so I
All
want
right, let's go.
rapid fire answers for these. Okay, some of them you're going to be like,
All
I
right,
need
cool.
longer. You haven't got longer. Right, first one, best post fight meal,
Oh, it's got to be a pizza. Always a pizza, mate.
and what's on it?
Brother, cheese pizza. If you fuck up a cheese pizza, you're not a good restaurant.
Where is Christian Young in 365 days?
365 days a year from now. That's going to be 6-0. That's 5 or 6-0, and that's Uncle Dana giving me a call.
Aussie food or UK food?
Australian food. Easy.
What's the best? What's the best Australian
Oh,
food?
brother, shapes and twisties. Oh, shapes and twisties. They're biscuits, but like shapes and twisties. If we're talking about confectionery.
Still counts. Biggest guilty pleasure?
Biggest guilty pleasure. Eating when I'm not supposed to be eating.
Fair. Yeah, 100%. There's nothing better than that, like, not during the weight cut, but during the fight camp diet.
Just a little sneaky
Just like
one.
sneaking something you're not meant
sorry,
to have. Hey, you've never missed weight.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite tattoo that you have?
My Mary on my back, Lady of Guadalupe.
I'll put a photo over. That's a sick one. I love that one.
Sir.
Favorite hairstyle you've had?
The skullet. When it was like shorter than this, but it was long curls. That's before I had the ratty. That was fresh. I love that.
Favorite fight to watch? Any fight?
Fuck. Cody Garbrandt and Dominic Cruz.
Great shout. Favorite one of your fights to watch?
The next one.
Love that. That's a great answer. And final question. What is your favorite part of the fight game? What do you love?
Getting time off. Not getting time off, but having time off to spend around my family and friends. You know, we talked about how close we are. Getting to spend time around your house, brother, around Christmas. You know, it's a lovely time. Getting to spend time around my wife. Getting to spend time around the lads. When I don't have a fight booked, then we're just celebrating a fight, or we're leading up to a fight, and we just get to shoot the shit and have fun and get close. You know.
Okay. And with that, that is the first episode of The Fight Game wrapped up. So thank you very much, Oz, for being the first guest. I wouldn't have had anyone else on as the first guest. So I appreciate you being here, bro.
No, thank you, brother. I appreciate you, cause it's like you said, it's been great to shoot the shit. Obviously, not the usual shoot the shit we do, having a little bit more long form answers, and yeah, man, just fucking doing what we do, brother.
All right. I can't wait to have you on again, bro. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Fucking oath.
Right. Best of luck. March 7th in Liverpool,
That's it.
fighting
Tune
Alex
in,
Hunt.
motherfuckers.
See you afterwards.